The air was heavy, soaked in rain and silence. His boots sank into the mud as the forest seemed to breathe around him, alive, watching. The GPS had died hours ago. The compass spun uselessly. And yet, the path ahead looked clear. He raised his camera, whispering a few words to break the stillness, when a shadow moved beyond the trees, tall, still, painted in ash. Then, a voice, soft, calling him by name. Ethan. Froze. How could they know it? Through the mist, a dozen figures emerged, their eyes catching the dull light like burning amber. They didn't look surprised to see him. They looked relieved. Welcome drums began to echo through the forest floor, rhythmic, pulsing, ancient. And as the beat grew louder, Ethan realized this wasn't a chance encounter. He'd been expected. But by who or what? He followed them deeper into the clearing, unsure whether he was a guest or prey. The air smelled of rain and smoke, of something ancient. Every structure in the village was made from bones and vines, decorated with carved faces. He tried to film, but the camera flickered as if resisting what it saw. Children painted with ash giggled from behind wooden masks. At the center stood a tall totem of interlocked skulls crowned with feathers, and there, among the strange harmony, he felt the first chill of realization. They weren't worshipping something buried. They were waiting for it to return. One of them placed a bowl before him, black water reflecting the flames. They gestured for him to drink. He hesitated, but refusing seemed dangerous. The moment it touched his lips, the world rippled. The sounds of the jungle faded, replaced by whispers too soft to be real. Images flashed behind his eyes, faces he'd never met, landscapes he'd never seen. Yet he recognized them all. When he opened his eyes, Araya was staring at him. "You remember," she whispered. Night fell without warning. The jungle hummed like it was alive. They led him to a circular hut, adorned with bone wind chimes and skulls painted in red clay. Inside, murals covered every surface, depictions of men from another time, pale-skinned explorers drawn in intricate detail. One of them looked exactly like him. His camera battery died the moment he tried to capture it. Outside, drums echoed again, slower, deeper. The air trembled with each beat. Chief Maku stepped forward, holding a carved mask shaped like a skull. He placed it in Ethan's hands and said a single word: "Return." The crowd began to chant, their voices merging into something that didn't sound human. Ethan looked down at the mask, its hollow eyes staring back. He suddenly realized the paint inside was still wet. Dawn broke through the canopy, spilling golden light over the village. Ethan awoke on a woven mat, muscles stiff, mind racing. The ritual had begun before he even realized it. Smoke curled from every corner, and the tribe moved silently, almost like shadows themselves. Araya approached him, her expression unreadable, and handed him a necklace made of small bones. "It will protect you," she said, though her voice carried a strange weight, almost like a warning. As he fastened it around his neck, the carvings seemed to pulse faintly. He felt the first tug of something deep inside, a memory that wasn't his own. The tribe gathered in a circle around a central fire pit, its embers glowing red in the early light. Ethan noticed faint patterns etched into the dirt, symbols that seemed to shimmer for a second when he blinked. Chief Maku stepped forward, raising a hand. The chanting began again, low and vibrating as if it came from the earth itself. Each word sent tremors through Ethan's chest, and suddenly he realized the symbols weren't just drawings. They were a map, pointing to something he couldn't yet understand. They led him to the edge of the jungle, where a small stream reflected the rising sun. Araya handed him a clay mask, painted in bone white and crimson. "You will wear this," she said. Hesitation gripped him. As he placed it over his face, the world shifted. He could hear whispers, faint, urgent, coming from the water, from the trees, from himself. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. For a moment, he wasn't just watching the ceremony. He was the ceremony. Back at the village, the tribe began adorning themselves with bones, feathers, and ash. Children darted between the adults, their faces painted in eerie glowing patterns. Ethan tried to record, but every shot on his camera came out black. Panic fluttered in his chest. He realized this ceremony wasn't meant to be seen by outsiders. The chanting swelled, faster now, and the firelight cast flickering shadows that seemed to reach for him. Something ancient, something alive, was watching. Chief Maku approached Ethan once more, holding a small carved skull filled with a glowing liquid. "Drink," he said softly, eyes unreadable. Ethan hesitated, feeling every heartbeat echo through the misty clearing. One sip, and the world shifted violently. He saw faces from another time, explorers who looked like him, villagers long dead, and Araya's expression morphing into someone familiar yet impossible. The chant reached a crescendo. His mind screamed, but his body obeyed. The liquid touched his lips, and suddenly, everything went black. When Ethan awoke, he wasn't on the mat anymore. The village had vanished, replaced by an endless forest, shrouded in twilight. Every tree seemed alive, whispering his name. Shadows twisted into faces he thought he'd never seen. But then, shockingly, they were his own. Memories that weren't his surged. A ship rocking on stormy seas, an explorer's journal with sketches of this very tribe, and a warning scrawled in ink he had never touched. How could he remember someone else like? He staggered forward, his breath shallow, heart hammering, wondering if the tribe had opened a door he could never close. He stumbled into a clearing where ghostly figures moved like echoes of the past. Men in colonial-era clothing, weathered, pale, stood beside tribal elders, painted in ash. One of them looked exactly like him, holding a compass that spun uncontrollably. The figures repeated motions he remembered from his childhood dreams. Rituals, chants, offerings. Panic gripped him. Was he seeing history, or was he part of it now? Every heartbeat felt like a drum, each one sensing him closer to the tribe's secret. A sudden rustle made him whirl around. Araya emerged, her amber eyes gleaming with urgency. "You cannot run," she whispered. Her hands traced symbols in the air, each leaving a faint glow. The ground trembled beneath his feet, and the forest itself seemed to pulse with rhythm. Ethan tried to speak, but the words tangled in his throat. He realized this was no hallucination. The tribe's power had tethered him to the past, binding his soul to theirs. The line between who he was and who he had been blurred with each step. The forest parted, revealing a river glowing with phosphorescent light. Ethereal figures floated above its surface, souls of the departed, faces serene yet sad. Chief Maku appeared beside him, older than ever, whispering, "This is where the living and the dead meet. You are chosen because you carry their return." Ethan's knees buckled. Every instinct screamed to flee, but the current of unseen forces pulled him closer. The river shimmered, and he glimpsed the reflection of a life he never lived, and perhaps could never escape. Without warning, the river's surface rippled violently. Faces swirled in the water, explorers, villagers, even himself at different ages. A sudden voice boomed inside his head. "Return or be lost forever." Panic surged, but something inside him recognized the command. The mask on his face pulsed with heat, binding him to the choice. He reached toward the river, feeling the energy surge through his veins. The forest held its breath. Ethan understood this ceremony wasn't merely ritual. It was a reckoning. The next morning, Ethan awoke in a hammock woven from vines, swaying gently in the mist. The tribe had prepared the clearing for a new ceremony, and every surface gleamed with wet ash and fresh carvings. Araya appeared silently, holding a feathered staff. "They are waiting," she said. Ethan's heart raced. Each step he took toward the circle felt heavier, as if the forest itself resisted him. The air smelled of smoke and damp earth, and he realized the ceremony was not just ritual. It was a test. Something unseen watched, judging. The tribe began to chant, a low, vibrating rhythm that made the ground thrum beneath his feet. Ethan tried to follow, but every word felt foreign, yet strangely familiar, as if he had spoken it before in another life. Shadows danced across the huts and trees, forming faces of those long dead. He caught glimpses of explorers who looked like him from centuries ago. A chill ran down his spine. He wasn't just an outsider anymore. The tribe saw him as part of their world, part of their history, and part of their future. Chief Maku approached, holding a set of small skulls connected by sinew. "They chose you because your soul remembers," he murmured. Ethan's stomach nodded. Each skull seemed to vibrate faintly, as if whispering secrets he couldn't yet understand. The tribe surrounded him, hands outstretched, their eyes glowing with an intensity that made him dizzy. Every instinct screamed to run, yet a strange pull rooted him in place. He was both terrified and hypnotized. This was not mere hospitality. It was possession. They led him to a cavern behind the waterfall at the edge of the village. Inside, walls were carved with hundreds of faces, old and new. Some bore his own features. Araya's voice echoed. "Every soul that returns leaves a mark." Ethan's throat tightened. He touched a carving, cold, wet, and alive. The eyes seemed to follow him. Suddenly, the cavern hummed and a soft light emanated from the floor. The ceremony's true purpose was no longer a secret. It wasn't only worship. It was transformation, and he was the next. A sudden rumble shook the cavern. Ethan stumbled, and the carvings seemed to shimmer, merging past and present. Chief Maku placed a hand on his shoulder. "You must decide. To flee is impossible. To resist is to vanish." Ethan looked at the mask in his hands. It pulsed with heat and energy. Every vision, every face he had seen in the river, the forest, and the murals, all pointed to this moment. The ceremony wasn't finished. It had only just begun, and he was at the center of it. The jungle had grown unnaturally silent. Ethan stood in the ceremonial circle, surrounded by chanting tribe members, their bodies painted in ash and crimson, swaying in unison. His heart pounded as visions flashed, his childhood dreams, the explorers from the murals, his own reflection in rivers long ago. Chief Maku stepped forward, holding a ceremonial blade carved from obsidian. "To truly return, you must accept what you are," he intoned. Ethan's hands shook. Acceptance felt like surrender, yet every fiber of his being was drawn to it. The drum beats rose, pounding in sync with his heartbeat. Ethan felt the pull inside him, the memories that weren't his, the voices that whispered through the forest, the faces of those long dead. The tribe's chants grew louder, rising to a deafening crescendo. His reflection in the obsidian blade shimmered, showing not just his face, but a lineage intertwined with the tribe. Suddenly, Araya stepped forward, placing a hand on his chest. "You've always been one of us," she whispered. Fear and recognition collided, and Ethan realized that this ceremony wasn't about him choosing. They had chosen him long before he arrived. The ground shook. Flames from the central fire leapt higher, revealing hidden faces carved into surrounding trees, ancestors who had undergone the same ritual. Ethan's mind reeled. Every step he had taken, every vision had led to this moment. His body trembled, resisting yet yielding. The line between life and death blurred, and he felt himself being pulled across some invisible threshold. The tribe's chanting became a living force, binding him to the past, present, and future. Ethan's vision split. He saw the river glowing with phosphorescent spirits, the jungle alive with faces of explorers and villagers alike, the carvings in the cavern pulsing as if breathing. A voice echoed through his mind. Return or vanish. He realized the choice wasn't whether to participate. It was whether to embrace what he truly was. A soul reborn, carrying memories that transcended time. Trembling, he reached out toward the fire, feeling the pulse of every chant, every heartbeat, and every echo of the past flowing into him. The ceremony reached its peak. The fire blazed, the chanting thundered, and Ethan felt his consciousness split. Part him, part the explorers from centuries past, part the tribe itself. Chief Maku raised his arms, and the circle fell silent. Ethan's vision collapsed into a single point of white light. He understood. The tribe had not just welcomed him. They had been waiting for him to return, to take his place in a lineage that defied death. The forest held its breath, and Ethan closed his eyes, stepping fully into the unknown. Ethan opened his eyes to a changed world. The jungle seemed sharper, more alive. Every leaf, every branch vibrating with energy. The tribe no longer appeared hostile, yet their gaze weighed on him, expectant and unwavering. His body felt different, lighter yet tethered to something he couldn't name. The mask in his hands pulsed faintly. Every instinct told him he had crossed a line, but the truth hit him like a lightning strike. Once chosen, there was no returning. The tribe's welcome had a price, and he had paid it. The village elders gathered around him, Chief Maku at the center, holding an ancient staff adorned with feathers and bones. "Now you see what it means to return," Maku said. Ethan's mind raced with the visions of explorers, rivers of spirits and faces carved into stone and wood. Every choice he had made, every step into the jungle, had led here. The ceremony was over, yet its effects were permanent. He realized he wasn't just a guest. He was now part of their eternal cycle. Araya approached, guiding him to a small shrine built of woven vines and bones. "This is your place now," she whispered. Ethan's pulse quickened. The shrine smelled of smoke, earth, and something sweetly metallic. Symbols he had seen in visions were etched into every surface, glowing faintly. He felt a strange pull, as if the shrine itself was alive. Sitting inside, he realized he could see the spirits of the past explorers, faces smiling, nodding, approving. The tribe had not only claimed him, they had shown him his destiny. Hours passed, or perhaps it was days. The concept of time had lost meaning. Ethan began to feel the tribe's essence within him. The rhythm of their drums in his heartbeat, the pulse of the jungle in his veins. He touched his own reflection in a pool of water, and for the first time, the explorers' faces he had seen merged seamlessly with his own. He understood that the ceremony had worked. He was no longer merely Ethan Cross. He was a bridge between worlds, a living memory of what had come before. As night fell, the village glowed softly with phosphorescent lights and flickering fire pits. Ethan felt no fear, only connection. The whispers of past souls echoed through the trees, now gentle, welcoming. Chief Maku approached, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You have returned," he said, voice filled with quiet pride. Ethan looked around, seeing the tribe not as strangers, but as a family spanning centuries. The jungle hummed in approval, and he finally understood. Some journeys are not about leaving, but about becoming part of something eternal. The first light of dawn crept over the jungle canopy, casting long shadows across the village. Ethan stood at the edge of the clearing, feeling the pulse of every tree, every stone, every carved face. The air hummed with quiet expectation. He realized that while he had accepted the tribe's power, there was still a choice: to fully merge with their world, or to try to return to the one he had known. But the forest whispered the same truth over and over. Some doors once opened, never close. The weight of eternity pressed on him, yet a strange calm filled his chest. He turned back to the village, noticing how each figure moved in perfect harmony, like a single organism. The chanting that had once terrified him now resonated within his chest. For the first time, Ethan felt the weight of centuries in his veins. The lives of explorers, villagers, ancestors, all intertwined with his own. His reflection in a pool of water shimmered, showing a face that was both his and not his, a bridge between worlds, and in that moment he understood. The tribe did not merely welcome him, they had awakened something that had always been inside him. Suddenly the wind shifted, carrying whispers and the faint drum beats of distant ancestors. Chief Maku stepped forward, his gaze solemn yet approving. "To return fully is impossible," he said. Ethan's chest tightened. Every instinct urged him to leave, to reclaim the life he had known. But the forest, the tribe, and the river of spirits all tugged him toward the center of the circle. He realized that he had already crossed the threshold. He had returned. And now his fate was bound to theirs forever. Ethan closed his eyes, letting the forest's energy flow through him. He felt the pulse of the tribe, the river, the ancestors, and even the explorers whose faces he had seen in visions. The mask in his hands seemed to melt into his skin, becoming part of him. The jungle hummed in response, alive with centuries of memory and ritual. A single thought pierced his mind. He was no longer just a man. He was a story, a memory, a living echo of everything that had come before. The final drum beat echoed through the jungle, deep and resonant. Ethan opened his eyes, and for a brief moment, he saw the world as both alive and eternal. The living, the dead, and the ones who would return. Chief Maku nodded, a faint smile creasing his weathered face. Araya's eyes glimmered with quiet approval. The ceremony was complete. Ethan breathed deeply, feeling the weight of history, memory, and destiny settle within him. He was no longer merely a visitor. He had become part of the tribe, part of the jungle, and part of a story that would never end.